Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric in our long-running series, The Unported Playlist, where I take a look at my favorite unported arcade games of all time. Today we have an extra special treat for you because Alpine Surfer on the Namco Super System 22 now works in a test build of MAME, and big thanks to the cool pup for bringing this to my attention. He messaged me on Discord and sent me the files along, so now we can enjoy this game, which is spectacular because it's the last of the Super System 22 games that people weren't able to play in MAME. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But it's spectacular to play Alpine Surfer in MAME because, like I said earlier, this was the last of this platform's games that did not work, and it is just so much fun. This was another giant amusement cabinet where you stood on basically a full-size snowboard and you rocked your body left and right and pushed on different directions on the board to turn, to carve, and to do different tricks. And you do not see these arcade cabinets out in the wild much longer anymore because most of them were broken or break. People beat on arcade cabinets, and imagine how much stress an arcade cabinet that people stand on to control it take. And that's why if you ever do see Alpine Surfer in the wild, 100% throw some credits in and play it because you're looking at an absolute unicorn. But I love the Super System 22 hardware. It was actually developed in part by a company, Evans & Sutherland, which did simulator hardware for military applications, as well as making the GPUs for Namco's arcade boards. Very similar to Sega working with Lockheed Martin on the Model 2 and the Model 3. But I've always loved the look of the Namco Super System 22 hardware, Dirt Dash being my favorite game. And Alpine Surfer is definitely no slouch either. It's a super fun game to look at in motion. Now it doesn't run anywhere near as fast as a sense of speed as something like Sega's skiing or snowboarding games, which I'll kind of compare later. But what is here is just so much fun. I've loved these cabinets, and I'm definitely partial to loving them both because I'm an arcade hardware collector, and I also worked in the snow sports industry for the longest time on the skiing side, not the snowboard side. So Alpine Surfer gets a little bit of a strike for not being skiing based, but all jokes aside, when you finish one run, you get this awesome replay, and it actually does persist the things you did in-game and re-show them to you at different angles, and you can see just how nice those polygons do look. And it is great that this is finally working in MAME. There will be a few graphical glitches here and there. Whatever's going on with that little black bar there, it looks like a polygon is clipping from infinity. But the game is 100% playable, and that is all that genuinely matters, because this game used to be an absolute hot mess. Taking a look at it running here in the current build of MAME, not the test build, flashing white learning in 3, 2, 1-ish, well maybe another second or so, it's just a disaster. This is all that happens when you try to play the game. And this, like I said, is a test build of MAME. You'll have to compile it yourself from a GitHub repo that I will leave a link to the description below. Sorry about all that green, it is quite obnoxious. The one nice thing about Alpine Surfer is you at least get 2 courses, there's not just one, and you have the ability to just do freeriding as well as kind of a Super G gate system. But I love that Namco characters' balloons are just blowing by in the breeze, and obviously this is going to be a lot harder of a course than the first one. And you can assign the carving buttons to face buttons on an analog controller, and this game is 100% perfectly playable with that analog stick. Now, of course, you're missing a lot of the charm of the game because you don't have a giant snowboard to stand on, to push on, but from a preservation standpoint, it's absolutely spectacular that Alpine Surfer now works. And I'm sure the people that work on the Namco drivers for MAME take this as a sense of pride because they had every other game working except one. And if you know anything about arcade fanatics, we don't like anything other than a full set. And when it comes to emulation, I'm sure the people writing the drivers wanted this to run as well. But it's just so much fun. It can trick you sometimes. I thought that was a rail, but it was actually a fence. But the trick system is fun as well. There's grabs, there's backflips, there's spins. It's not as many tricks as you can do on a real snowboard, but it does have a good vibe to it. And you do get some different surfaces like this ice here. Suddenly the back end of your snowboard starts going out. But it also has an excellent soundtrack, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds and I'll come back and talk more about why having Alpine Surfer working in MAME is spectacular.
Cool! Nice grab! Yeah, check out that spinning top! Yahoo!
Classic Namco soundtrack, but why do they put a jump in front of a bridge? Have I ever gotten over it? I tried 3 different times and I was unable to, so I don't know what's going on there, but I love the character when he takes a fall, loses his hat, and he definitely doesn't look like the coolest snowboarder ever. Even in the 90s, people probably dressed better than he did, but we can't really fault him too much for that. And again, another fun replay. It just gives you some nice angles at what's going on within this game, but it is just incredible that we can play this at the end of 2022 in MAME. MAME is preserving so many different things, and these are, like I said earlier, games that if you ever find them, you'll 100% have to play them because you're probably never going to see them again. But let's go over to gate racing here. It's still the same courses, but it gives you a little something extra to do because you need to do, kind of a Super G through them. Honestly, the spacing would be more like a downhill than a Super G, but honestly, I don't think anyone outside of me would ever even notice that. But again, it is just a fun game, and I have seen this in arcades back in the day, and I did play this because a lot of these cabinets ended up at ski resorts, so if you weren't on the slopes, you could be on the slopes virtually, giving the mountain quarters. I don't understand, I just always saw them there because I traveled a lot for skiing work. This is something that I do have experience with, and I haven't seen it in probably 15 years, so to be able to see this running again is 100% amazing. It couldn't make me any happier, and it should make you happy too that these games are not only playable so you can enjoy them, but preserved for generations to come. It is great that now that this exists in MAME, anyone can play Alpine Surfer anytime they want. And it would be fun to just try to do some high scores, world records, do speed runs of this just to see who could get the best score on MAME, because it is just so great that we can play it. Now, if there's only one complaint I would make about this game versus other games in the same genre is the sense of speed just isn't there. It's running at 60 frames a second and it's smooth, but if you go over to something like Super G on the Sega Model 2 hardware, the sense of speed is just that much more enhanced. It's not like the Super System 22 wasn't powerful enough to compete with the Model 2. It's just a design decision. Sega decided they want to have everything moving really fast on Model 2, where Namco took a little bit more of a laid-back approach with the visuals. It's not a bad thing, it's just a different thing, but you can see as we go back over to Alpine Surfer, it does run ever so slightly slower, not in frame rate, but in how the sense of speed is articulated on camera. But short of that, the game is so much fun to play, and this is the type of game, unless MAME existed, I never thought I would see it again. It's quite possible that in North America there might be 1 to 2 cabinets left. I do not know of any cabinets out in the wild, but every time I do a video like this, I ask you guys to tell me if you know where one is, and inevitably at least one person sends me a photo of the cabinet out in the wild. So if you do know where there's an Alpine Surfer cabinet, please leave a comment down below and tell me. If it's close enough, I will 100% drive to it and play it on camera. Now remember, you do have the test menu as well, and if you're learning, you can change the game time and things such as that, and you can also test all your controls, because binding the controls to a controller is a little bit different than just, playing a beat 'em up or something like that. You do have different buttons and different analogs you have to set up, so just make sure the assignments in MAME by default are relatively good, but I did move some things around, and there's no exit, so just hit the test button again and you'll be back out into the game. But yeah, Alpine Surfer on the Super System 22 now works in MAME, and I never thought I'd see the day. And hopefully this means that there's some other 3D games that will soon be working in MAME. That fence gets me every single time. But yeah, it's a spectacular day, and thanks Cool Putt for telling me it existed. Short of that, I'll have another unported episode next week, and I'll have videos the week as well. Let's go snowboarding. Bye-bye.